think what it boils down to is a group of people living in ignorance and a group of people who live with a fuller understanding of how things really are. Now, the most important thing to understand about human beings is that we are adaptable. That's how we survive as a species. That is how we can live in ice houses in the North Pole and in the jungle rainforests of the Amazon. We adapt to our environment. Whether or not the environment is natural or artificially created. And what we're living in right now is a society, an environment that has allowed itself to be manipulated by a select few for a very materialistic reason. Are you ready for this one? Are you ready? Okay. In order to create this dimension, we have to take the opposite of this dimension. How this would translate into old-time stories, metaphors, parables. You would say that God kicked Lucifer out of heaven. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. You got your Father. You got your Son. And you have the Holy Ghost. Ghost, because it is truly secondary to the purpose of this dimension, which is to manifest this negative. Right? It's still totally 50-50. But this particular dimension is based on the negative, based on the opposite of the all-positive first element. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. So in other words, this material dimension, this earth, this whole universe, is in reality, according to the stories and the parables and all that, if you have to look at it, define it within those terms, this physical world is indeed Lucifer's domain. Okay? I'd like to tell you a little story about the fish now. Now the fish sees a worm. Now the fish knows that that worm is good for him. Right? Fish knows that the worm is he's going to eat the worm and it's going to make his life better. But we want the fish to eat the worm. It's natural. It's organic. Alright, now, fish swims along and he sees the worm. But now there's a hook in it. It's the same worm, except now there's a hook. So the fish doesn't really know any better. The fish is trusting. The fish just knows that it likes the worm, and the worm is good. So it goes up and it eats this worm with a hook. And now it's got this hook in its belly. But now you have your fisherman. What do you think of that? Guess who the fish is? The fish is us. The fish is the regular common folk. Alright? The worm is the teachings of Jesus. The teachings of Jesus. The hook, the line, well, that's religion. Religion has hooked the teachings of Jesus in order to draw you in, fish. Change your direction to control your life. So Lucifer has manipulated man through religion by using the bait of Jesus. Do you see? Do you see? Does the fish need the hook in order to eat the worm? Does the fish have a right to eat the worm without the hook in it? And the answer is yes. Now I know there's some of you out there who are rooting for the fish to eat the hook. And all I can say to you is you're going to burn in hell. No, ideally we all want the fish to eat the good natural organic worm, right? Okay. Can that be done? Absolutely. The fish does not need the hook to eat the worm. And the worm is good. But the hook is bad. The hook is bad. The hook is bad. Okay? Let's describe characteristics, traits, behaviors, and assign them to a category of either Christ-like or anti-Christ-like. Okay? All right. First example: a parent who protects his child, who goes out of his way to ease discomfort and to care for. That would be under the Christ category. Caring. All right. Prevents harm. So conversely, anti to that would be a parent who willfully allows or even perpetrates harm upon their own child. That's antichrist. Now a parent who sacrifices their very own life in order to protect the life of their child, that would be a Christ-like attribute. Now a parent who willfully offers up for sacrifice the life of his own child in order to gain personally, those are attributes of the Antichrist. Parent who would willfully offer his child up for torture, sacrifice, and murder. Those are all dynamics of the Antichrist system. Do you understand? Let's look at the Old Testament. Let's look at Abraham. Abraham has his son Isaac tied to the bundle of wood, a knife, about to stab into his kid. And somewhere in the scene is the God of the Old Testament watching this whole thing unfold. Watching the kid in terror, watching Abraham prepare to kill his kid to please this God. Child sacrifice, harms the child, Antichrist. Follow me? Now let's look at the dynamic in the New Testament between God and Jesus. Remember, as Jesus is being nailed to the cross, God must be somewhere there, watching every hammer strike, watching his child die. And what is the reason they give? Because God so loved the world. Because God loved the world, He sacrificed His only child right? What did Jesus say about the world? He said, love not the world. Be in the world, but not of the world. So for God to say that He loves the world so much He's going to kill His Son for it, well, the only way that makes sense is if the God in question is the God of the Antichrist. Okay? So, the Old Testament simply starts up in Genesis with Lucifer falling from heaven. Once you come to terms with the fact that the Old and New Testament are really, remember, Lucifer wanted to be God, right? And that's why he got kicked out of heaven. And he was sent down to earth. So the first thing he's going to do here on earth is set himself up as God, right? So that's what he did. He came down here and set himself up as God. So when they talk about God in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, they're really referring to the duality-based concept of Lucifer. Lucifer saw the message that Jesus preached was pure, and the people loved it. And it was... so what did he do? He took it in. He swallowed it. He changed it. But he left just enough to bring the people in. He's the fisherman with Jesus on a hook. You get the picture? It's okay to abandon the hook and keep the word. Okay? Because in essence, what Jesus boils down to is a directive on how to live your life. Namely, love one another. Right? Do unto others. Very basic. Very simple. I got news for you. All history is subjective. Therefore, it is open to interpretation and speculation. You never know what the agenda or motive was behind the person who wrote the history, what their facts are based on, what is their uber motive. Christianity that is based on a sacrifice and death motif is Antichrist, is satanic Christianity. Do you understand? Religions are Antichrist, are satanic Christianity. The hook is the religion based on the worm. So you can't blame the fish, can't blame the good Christians, all right? Because they believe in Jesus, and that's good. You just got to be able to develop your sense of truth and see how, in accordance with his simple teachings, these corporations are that bear his name. Well, it sounds kind of bleak, you know, if you come to realize that there really isn't a battle of good and evil going on right now. That pretty much it's all evil. See, what the thing is, no matter how evil it is, it's always at least 50% potentially all positive, right? Because this whole dimension is duality. The only thing that's evil is our intent. Okay, that's the only thing that's evil, our intent. And that is the easiest thing for us to change. Our direction of thought. It all comes down to the return of Christ. The return of Christ awareness. Now, we've been told by the lie machine that it's going to be in the form of a person outside of ourselves, when in truth, it's going to be a revelation of awareness from within. All right? And then the battle is going to be between group satanic thought versus enlightened individual Christ thinking. So the battle is going to be between the individual and the group. Between the individual and the group. Think about that. Once you become aware of the overwhelming evil in this world, you're able to get your awareness up and out. Do you understand? You're no longer stuck in this. Once you've seen the totality of it, once you've seen 24 hours in the day, once you've seen 6666, .666 is just a technique of the beast. It's all about keeping the general public ignorant of an entire quarter of the day, the darkest part of night, keeping that information to themselves, keeping a realm of nightmares and dread, a zone of fear, of control. Okay? So once you understand the entire 24 hours, you're no longer bound to that fear system. All right, 666 will hold you down, but 6666 will free you. Okay, what do you think of that? The internet is a multi-edged blade. Okay? First, you get anything you want out there, so it's a fantastic resource for information and exposure to new ideas. Two, you're completely tracked. Every single thing you do, say, and write is recorded somewhere. It is the greatest techno-surveillance tool that they have, whoever they are. Because there's so much amazing evil online, you can go on and find anything you want. You can see anything. You can expose yourself to anything. You no longer have to join these elite exclusive men's clubs. You know, you no longer have to belong to some brotherhood or fraternity to engage in this kind of evil exposure. You can do it from the comfort of your own home and gain that mental exercise, that power, that reasoning that comes with exposure to the true horrors of this material world. And that's what I think has bitten the old guard in the butt, is that they didn't realize how quick people would educate themselves and become aware of how things really are so quickly. So the battle is not even between Jesus and Satan. It is between you and Lucifer itself, if you have to look at it in those terms. But you don't, really. because it's just concepts, it's just ideas. They impose on our civil liberties. They abuse power and authority. They abuse trust. The knowledge of this Luciferian supremacy in this material dimension must be very widespread in order to account for the magnitude of evil and corruption that we see in our world today. These are just the ideas that make the most sense. What you've been taught and what you may think you know, you may have to actually go 180 degrees from that to find the real truth. Keep that in mind. It's a trick of deceivers to completely flip things around, to distract, to sidetrack. Now, the drama between Jesus and Satan, that's all just puppeteer work by Lucifer. You see? Distraction. What you got to do is rise above that duality and come to awareness that the true battle of Armageddon is going to be between your individual awareness and duality as personified by Lucifer. But in reality, it's simply the singularity of your all-positive awareness coming to awareness of duality and being able to maintain that awareness of true self as an eternal all-positive and not this body. Basically, there are two ways to look at the world. As an independent point of view, you can look at this world either negatively, which is what we pretty much predominantly have right now, or you can look at this world from the positive side. What we have to do is regain an appreciation for all life, an appreciation for all humanity, and this world would be such a wonderful place if we did just one thing, and that is stop putting effort into making it such a bad place. Okay? Why are we doing this? At the most simple level, the reason is because we live in a time where we are controlled by satanic drug dealers. Period. That's it. Satanic drug dealers. Namely, drug dealers who will do whatever they can to sell as much of their product as they can. Now, what's the number one thing that drives people to use drugs? I would imagine that it's using drugs to escape an unpleasant and harsh reality. Right? So, how do you increase the desire for the drugs? You simply create a harsh and unpleasant reality. Create wars and generate more profits off the arms sales, but primarily it's all about the drugs. Dig? The wars and the arms, that's just part of the machinery, but that's secondary to the primary, and that is the drugs. So, like I say, if we would just stop putting effort into making this a bad world, we could have peace on earth. We could have a paradise on earth. We could have a world where everybody gets along and there is no hunger. We could have a world where we share our technology and use it for the benefit of mankind and not as a weapon against mankind. The corporation is the most popular tool of Antichrist system participants. The soulless corporate non-entity. What is a corporation anyway? It's just a collection of ideals set loose on the public. And you get some ill intent, and you get that set into motion by a soulless corporation whose number one purpose is simply to squeeze money out of the population. But I'm not saying all corporations are evil or bad, because again, it all depends on the intent behind the machinery. What it is you set up and let loose in the world. Kind of like America used to be when we were a constitutional republic based on ideals.